The strange light in the forest. Daniel lived alone in a small wooden house near the edge of a deep forest. The place was quiet and peaceful, with only the sound of birds in the morning and wind at night. He liked this life because it helped him forget his old memories and pain. He had no family, no children, and no wife, just a simple life with his books and tools. One cold night, while making tea in his kitchen, Daniel saw a flash of blue light through the window. It was not lightning, and it was not a plane. The light was fast and strange, and it moved across the sky like it was falling from above. He stepped outside and looked up. His heart beat faster. The light disappeared into the forest, leaving a soft glow in the distance. He picked up his flashlight and jacket and walked quickly toward the trees. He did not know why he was going, but something inside told him it was important. The forest was dark and cold, and every step made dry leaves crunch under his boots. The air felt different, like it was watching him, like something was waiting. After walking for 20 minutes, he reached a small clearing. The light had stopped here. The ground was warm and the grass was glowing softly like stars. He looked around carefully and saw a small shape near a tree. It was moving slowly, like it was breathing. Daniel walked closer. With a careful voice, he said, "Hello, are you okay? Do you need help?" He was shocked when he saw what it was. It was a child, a little girl, no older than 6 or 7, but her skin was not like any human he had seen. It was soft and silver, with a faint glow. Her eyes were large and bright, with a color that changed like the ocean. She wore no shoes, and her clothes looked torn and strange, like from another world. She looked at him with fear, but also with hope. She tried to speak, but no words came, only soft sounds like music. Daniel bent down slowly and said, "It's okay. I won't hurt you. Are you lost? Where are your parents?" She blinked and looked up at the stars, then pointed to the sky with a shaking hand. Daniel knew then she was not from here, not from this planet. He gently reached out his hand, and she touched it with cold, small fingers. Something passed between them, a strange, warm feeling, like light without heat, like trust without words. He lifted her in his arms. She was light like a feather, but warm like the sun. He wrapped her in his jacket and walked back through the forest. The wind blew harder, but he held her close. She did not speak, but she kept looking at him like she was trying to understand who he was. When they reached the house, he made her sit on the sofa and brought her warm soup and a blanket. She did not eat, but watched him closely, her eyes never blinking, her body calm and still, like a statue. After a while, she stood and walked to the window and looked up again at the sky. Daniel asked gently, "Who are you? Where are you from?" She turned and smiled softly, but said nothing. He decided to call her Luna because she came from the sky and her face looked like the moon, soft and shining. She seemed to like the name and nodded slowly, like she understood. Daniel showed her a photo of the earth. She shook her head, then pointed to the stars again. Later that night, she fell asleep on the couch, holding a small metal cube he had not seen before. It was smooth and glowing faintly, like it had a heart inside it. Daniel sat nearby, watching her sleep, wondering what to do, what would happen if someone else found her. Would they hurt her? Would they take her away? As he sat thinking, the lights in the room flickered. Then his phone on the table started to float in the air. Slowly it turned in a circle, then dropped back with a soft sound. Daniel's eyes widened. He looked at Luna. She was still asleep, but her fingers were glowing softly, with tiny symbols dancing on her skin, like moving tattoos. Something inside him changed at that moment. He felt no fear, only a deep wish to protect her. He did not care if she was alien or human or something else. He only knew she was alone and she needed someone, and for the first time in many years, Daniel felt needed. Outside, the wind was still howling, the stars were watching, and the forest stood silent and dark. But inside the small house, something new had begun, something strange, something beautiful and far, far away in a cold part of space. Something had just woken up, and it had heard the signal not from Earth. The morning came slow and silent, with soft light coming through the window. Daniel opened his eyes and for a moment forgot everything, but then he saw her, the little girl with glowing skin, sleeping on the couch like a dream from another world. She still held the strange metal cube close to her chest, her breathing soft and calm like a quiet song. Daniel stood and walked to the kitchen, trying not to wake her. He made tea and looked outside. The sky was clear and normal. The birds were singing as if nothing had happened, but he knew the truth was far from normal. Last night was real, and the child was real, and nothing would be the same again. When he came back with a warm cup, he saw that Luna was awake. She sat quietly with the blanket around her. Her eyes looked at everything With wonder, the walls, the pictures, the kettle on the stove, as if she was learning this world with every glance he gave her the cup and she held it carefully like it was something very special. She touched the steam with her fingers and smiled. Daniel sat beside her and asked gently, "Do you understand me?" She nodded slowly, then pointed at herself and said, "Luna," then pointed at him and said, "Daniel." He smiled and nodded. "Yes, Daniel, you remember, good girl." She smiled again and touched her chest softly, like she was thinking about her name. The next few days passed like a strange dream. Luna followed Daniel everywhere, in the garden, in the house, watching how he did things, how he spoke, how he moved. She started saying small words like water and sun and food, and her voice was soft and sweet like wind through trees, but something was not normal about her. Every night when she slept, the glowing marks on her skin would move like they were alive, changing shapes and colors. Sometimes his phone would turn on by itself, or the lights would flicker when she was near, and once the radio started playing a language he had never heard before. Daniel knew he had to find out more. He took her to a local doctor, said she was a lost child, no ID, no name, just found her in the woods. The doctor ran tests and scans, but everything came back strange. Her blood was not like human blood. Her heart had a different rhythm, and her body temperature was always warm like a sun inside. The doctor looked confused and asked, "Where did you really find her?" Daniel just said, "She needs help and care," and promised to keep her safe. The doctor said she was healthy but different, very different, and warned him to be careful. "Someone might come looking at home?" Daniel asked her again. "Where are you from?" Luna did not speak, but walked to the table, picked up a pencil and paper, and started drawing. What came out was not a house or a tree or a family. It was a planet with 2 moons and rings and stars around it, and next to it a ship like a giant bird with wings of light. She pointed at the drawing, then pointed up to the sky. Daniel felt cold and amazed. She really was not from this earth. She was from another world, lost or sent, or maybe running from something. He asked, "Who brought you here?" but she looked sad and turned her head away. Later that night they sat outside in the garden. Luna looked at the stars above her, eyes glowing gently. She held the metal cube in her hands and placed it on the ground. Suddenly it lit up and small lights floated from it into the air. They formed shapes like letters or a message, and Daniel watched with wide eyes, not understanding the meaning, but knowing it was something important. She looked at him and said, "Home." Daniel asked, "Is this how they find you?" She nodded and said, "Mother," then pointed at the sky again. He felt a strange feeling inside, something between fear and hope. He asked, "Will she come here? Will she find you?" Luna looked up and whispered yes. As they went back inside, a soft breeze moved through the trees, and Daniel felt like something far away had just started moving, like a signal had been sent and something had answered. He stood by the window that night, watching the sky while Luna slept in the next room, the cube glowing softly on the table beside her. He wondered, what would happen if someone came for her? What if they were not kind? What if they wanted to take her back without asking? What if she was never meant to be here? And what if she was meant for something bigger than anyone could understand? He looked at her small face, calm and peaceful, and felt something strong inside. He had no family, but now he had her, and he would protect her no matter what came next, no matter who came down from the stars. And far away in the cold darkness of space, a light had blinked on, and a voice had spoken in a language older than Earth, saying, "We have found her. They are watching us." The morning sky was gray, and the air felt heavy as Daniel opened the door and stepped outside. The wind moved through the trees in a slow, strange way, like something invisible was walking between the branches. He looked around carefully and felt a chill in his spine. Something was wrong. He did not know what it was, but his heart was telling him to be careful. Luna sat by the window inside, holding her glowing cube in both hands. Her eyes were fixed on the clouds above, like she was waiting for something or someone. Daniel walked back in and asked, "Are you okay?" She looked at him and nodded, but her voice was quiet as she whispered, "They are close." Daniel wanted to ask more, but before he could, the lights in the house flickered, then turned off completely. The room went dark for a moment, and Luna's cube began to glow brighter than before, sending soft blue light across the walls. The air was thick and silent, and even the birds outside had stopped singing. He looked out the window again and saw something floating in the sky. Not a bird, not a plane, but a small black object with red lights circling slowly above the trees. Like it was searching, like it was watching. He grabbed his old binoculars and Focused on it, it was a drone, but not like any drone he had seen before. It was smooth and silent and fast. Daniel pulled Luna away from the window and closed the curtains. He felt something rising in his chest. Not fear, but something close to it, something like warning. He said, "We need to stay quiet. Do not go outside today." She nodded and held the cube tighter, like she knew this would happen, like she was waiting for it. Later that day, a black car drove down the road and stopped near the house. Two men in dark suits stepped out and looked around. One of them held a strange device with blinking lights, and the other spoke into a small radio. Daniel watched from behind the curtain, holding his breath. They knocked on the door slowly and firmly. Daniel opened it just a little and said, "Can I help you?" Taller man smiled, but his eyes were cold. He said, "We are from a special research group. We are looking for something that may have landed in this area recently. Did you see or hear anything strange?" Daniel shook his head and said, "No, nothing like that." They asked more questions about lights in the sky and power surges and radio noise. Daniel kept his face calm and answered simply he knew they were not regular people they were searching for. Luna, after a few minutes they left, but Daniel knew they would return. He closed the door and locked it, then looked at Luna. She stood silently in the hallway, her eyes glowing faintly. She said, "Bad people want me. They take children like me." Daniel asked why. "What do they want from you?" She said, "They want power. They use us. They break families." Daniel felt a storm inside him growing. He had to protect her. He had to hide her. He took her hand and led her to the old cellar under the floor. He had kept tools and boxes there, but now it would be her safe place. He made a bed and gave her food and said, "Stay here. If anyone comes." She nodded and said, "Thank you, Daniel. You are good." That night he could not sleep. He sat in the living room with a flashlight in one hand and an old book in the other. Every sound outside made him look at the window. Every flash of light made him stand and listen. Then around midnight he heard a soft sound like humming, not from the house, not from outside, but from the cube. He rushed to the cellar and found Luna awake. The cube was floating in the air and the glowing symbols were spinning faster than ever. She said, "It is sending my signal. My real family is coming." Daniel felt both hope and fear in those words. What if they came? What if the men in black came first? What if it was already too late? He said, "Do you trust them?" She said, "I do, but I also trust you. You saved me. You cared for me when I was lost." Daniel smiled and said, "Then I will keep you safe until they come. I promise." Outside in the forest, the drone had returned. It hovered low near the trees, watching, listening, scanning, and then silently turned and flew back into the sky, disappearing into the clouds as if it had heard enough. Inside the house, Luna finally slept, the cube by her side, still glowing but calm. Daniel sat by the door, his eyes heavy but alert, his heart full of questions and his hands ready to protect. Far above the earth, beyond the clouds and stars, a ship moved through space, silent and fast. It had received the signal. It had changed its course, and now it was coming home. The arrival sky turned red as the sun began to fall, and the wind grew louder as if it was warning the earth of something big, something strange, something not of this world. Daniel stood in the garden with Luna by his side, both looking up as the clouds shifted and a light appeared in the far distance. Not lightning, not a plane, not a star. It was too big, too smooth, and too quiet to be anything human. People across the town stopped what they were doing and stared into the sky. Phones came out. News channels started buzzing. Radios began to report strange activity above the clouds. Something was coming, something that had no wings, no sound, and no explanation. Daniel stepped back as the light became brighter and closer, and then in one blink it disappeared, leaving the sky empty again. But something had changed. The air smelled different, like metal and fire and electricity, and Luna looked at him with wide, glowing eyes and whispered, "She is here." That night Daniel tried to sleep, but his thoughts kept racing. He kept checking the doors and windows and kept listening for sounds that did not belong. The wind outside never stopped moving, and the trees kept shaking, as if the forest itself was trying to speak. In the middle of the night, a soft knock came on the back door, not loud, not angry, just soft and careful. Daniel froze for a moment and then moved slowly towards the door. He opened it just a little, and what he saw made his breath stop. There stood a woman, not a human woman, but something beautiful and otherworldly. Her skin shimmered like silver silk. Her eyes were deep and glowing like Luna's, but older, wiser, full of emotion and memory. She wore a suit that seemed to be made of stars and light, and her voice was soft when she said, I am Zara. I came for my daughter Luna. Ran to the door and stopped in front of her, looking up with both fear and joy. Her lips moved slowly as she said, "Mother." And Zara fell to her knees and opened her arms. Luna walked into them, and the two held each other in silence, like time had stopped, like space had folded to bring them back together. Daniel watched from the side, his heart full of a strange feeling. He could not name happiness, sadness, fear, confusion, all mixed into one. Zara looked at him and said, "You kept her safe, thank you." Daniel said, "She is special. I could not let anything happen to her." Zara smiled and touched his hand and said, "She told me about you. She dreams of you. She calls you father." They all sat in the living room as Zara explained everything she told Daniel, how Luna was taken from her by enemies who wanted power, how Luna escaped, and how her signal reached them after so long. She said, "Luna is not just my daughter. She is important to many. She holds something inside her, something ancient, something that can bring peace or war." Daniel looked at Luna and saw her differently now, not just a lost child, but something greater. Something powerful, but still innocent, still loving, still needing care. He asked, "What happens now?" And Zara said, "I came to take her home. She belongs with her people, her family." Luna looked at Daniel, then looked at her mother, and then back at Daniel. Her eyes full of questions, her voice small and shaking as she asked, "Can he come with us too? I want him with me. I want both of you." Zara looked surprised, but not angry. She touched Luna's face and said, "It is not easy for a human to live in our world. Our air, our food, our way of life is different." Daniel said, "I do not care. I will try if it means staying with her. Then I will do anything." Before Zara could answer, the lights in the house flickered and the floor shook slightly. Daniel ran to the window and saw black cars speeding toward the house, their lights off, but their engines loud. He said, "They found us," and Zara stood quickly holding Luna close. She said, "We must leave now. They are not here to talk. They are here to take." Daniel grabbed the glowing cube and gave it to Zara. She placed it on the ground, and it opened into a small circle of light, a portal spinning like a mirror made of stars. She said, "Step through, and we will be safe on the other side." Luna held Daniel's hand tightly, her voice firm and sure as she said, "We go together." And Daniel nodded with no doubt in his heart. He stepped into the light, with them feeling the world around him stretch and shift like water around a stone. As the portal closed behind them, the agents burst through the door but found nothing but silence and soft glowing dust on the floor and high above the earth, hidden behind clouds and space. A great ship opened its doors to welcome them home, a choice between two worlds. The sky above was no longer blue and the stars around were no longer far. Daniel stood on a new land, a place beyond earth, where the air shimmered and the ground glowed beneath his feet. The trees were tall and soft, with leaves that whispered and changed color with every breeze, and the sky had two moons, one large and one small, both bright and slow and peaceful. Zara held Luna's hand as they walked together through the glowing field. Daniel followed with eyes wide and full of wonder. Everything here looked alive. Even the rocks had patterns that moved and pulsed like breath, and every sound was soft like music made by wind and light. They came to a large city built from crystals and energy towers reaching high, with no walls and no wires. Floating bridges and smooth paths all around, and strange creatures walked beside them, tall, thin beings with kind faces and glowing clothes. They looked at Daniel with curiosity, but not with fear. They nodded with respect and stepped aside as Zara passed through. Inside, the palace walls, made of light and stone, opened to reveal a room full of moving stars and silent waves. It was calm and warm, like a dream that never ends. Luna smiled and said, "This is home," but her hand still held Daniel's tight, like she was not ready to let go. Zara brought Daniel to a place where the air changed with thought, a chamber where memory could be seen and shared. She touched a glowing panel, and suddenly images appeared floating between them, visions of Luna as a baby floating in water, learning to speak, learning to walk, laughing under the twin moons, her first flight, her first song, her first time calling Zara mother. Then the memories turned dark. Luna taken by force, locked in a cold place, scared and alone, and then running through woods, chased by shadows, crashing through space, falling to earth, her face full of fear and pain, until she met Daniel and smiled again. Zara turned to him and said, "You gave her hope when I could not. You gave her light in her darkest hour, and for that I owe you everything." Daniel said, "She gave me more. I had nothing before her, and now I have purpose, I have family." They sat in silence, As soft light moved through the room, Luna played with floating shapes that changed as she touched them, her laughter filling the space like morning rain. Daniel watched her with pride and love and then asked, "What now? Do I stay or do I leave what?" Does Luna Nigera looked at the stars above and said, "She is meant for great things. She will lead our people one day. She will bring peace. Where there is war light, where there is dark, but she is still a child, still learning, still holding both worlds in her heart. She needs both of us. But this place is not meant for you, not for long. Your body will grow weak. Your spirit may struggle here. Earth lives inside you and it calls you back." Daniel closed his eyes and thought of the forest, the cold air, the sound of birds, the warmth of tea and books, and the simple life he had before Luna. He missed it, but he also knew he could not leave her, not like this, not without a promise, not without a way back. He said, "Then give me a choice. Let me go and return when she needs me. Let me be a part of her life, even from far away. Let her know I'm always here, always ready to protect." Sarah nodded and opened her hand. A small seed floated up, glowing and spinning. It is called a memory seed. It connects heart to heart, soul to soul, planted on earth, and it will grow into a light. She can follow a way back to you when the time is right. Daniel took it and felt it pulse in his hand like a heartbeat. He walked to Luna and knelt down. She looked at him with big eyes and said, "Are you leaving?" He nodded slowly and said, "Only for now, but I will always be near, always thinking of you, always loving you." She hugged him tight and whispered, "I will follow the light." The next day they brought him back to the edge of space where a small pod waited. Zara placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Thank you for saving my daughter. Thank you for being her father." Daniel stepped into the pod holding the memory seed close as the stars turned and the pod fell gently toward Earth. As the world grew closer and the sky turned blue again, Daniel looked out the window and smiled. He had left a part of himself behind, but he had also brought something back, something new, something brightened somewhere far above the clouds. Luna stood on her world, looking at the sky, whispering his name, holding a light in her heart that would never fade. The escape and the truth. The night was cold and quiet as Daniel returned to Earth, the stars above him still shining like distant eyes watching in silence. The pod landed gently in a hidden valley far from any city, far from any road. Soft lights blinked and faded as the hatch opened and Daniel stepped out holding the memory seed close to his chest, his heart heavy but calm. The forest welcomed him with the rustle of leaves and the sound of water nearby. He looked up at the sky where the moons of Luna's world once stood above him and whispered her name, knowing she might be watching from somewhere beyond. Days passed slowly as Daniel returned to his old house near the edge of the forest. Everything looked the same, but everything felt different. The wind carried new meaning, the shadows spoke softly, and the stars blinked in a language only he could now understand. He planted the seed in the garden near the tallest tree, just as Zara had told him, and watched it glow faintly each night like a signal, like a silent promise. But peace did not last long. One morning, Daniel saw smoke in the distance, then heard the sound of machines rolling over dirt and cutting through silence. He climbed the hill behind his house and saw black vans and masked men with strange tools searching the land, scanning the trees, burning the grass. They were not from the government, they were not from Earth. Daniel ran back to the house and gathered what he could: old maps, tools, notes, and the drawing Luna made of her planet. He knew they were looking for her, or maybe looking for him. Maybe they had followed the signal. Maybe they had tracked the seed. That night he dreamed of Luna standing in a field of light, calling out to him with fear in her eyes. Behind her, a shadow grew tall and wide, its eyes red and burning, its voice like thunder saying, "She is ours." He woke up with sweat on his face and a name in his mind: Zark, the one who took her, the one who wants her power. Daniel dug the seed from the ground and held it in his hand. It pulsed faster now, as if it could feel danger, as if it could call for help. He ran into the forest toward the place where he had first found Luna, hoping the connection still lived, hoping the bond still held. As he reached the clearing, the air began to change colors, danced above the grass, and a soft hum filled the space. The seed lifted from his hand, and a beam of light shot into the sky, piercing the clouds above. Daniel stepped back as wind swirled and the ground trembled, and then in a blink, Zara appeared, standing tall with her cloak flowing like water and her eyes glowing with fire. She said, "They are here too soon. The enemy followed the signal. They want to take her back and use her again, and worse, they want you because you Carry part of her, now part of our light. Daniel asked, where is Luna? Is she safe? And Zara answered, she is safe for now, hidden on our moon, protected by guardians, but the enemy grows stronger, and they will come for her again. They will not stop. He said, then take me back. I will fight with you. I will protect her. Zara shook her head and said, no, the connection between you and her must remain hidden. If they capture you, they will find her through. We must break the link. Daniel looked down at the seed, now dull in his hand. He asked, what do you mean break it? How? She said, we erase your bond with her. Your memories of her will fade. Your love will sleep until the war is over. It is the only way to keep her safe. He stood in silence, torn by the choice, his heart screaming while his mind tried to hold on. He said, if I forget her, will she forget me too? Zara said, no, she will remember you always, but you will not remember her, not until she comes back for you, not until the seed blooms. Again Daniel nodded slowly, tears in his eyes as he looked up at the stars one last time. He placed the seed on the ground and stepped back as Zara raised her hand, light wrapped around him, warm and soft, like her voice, like Luna's hug, like goodbye. As the forest faded from his view and the light covered all, Daniel whispered one final word before the memory left him forever. Luna. The stars above turned and the wind carried silence once more, the seed buried deep in earth, waiting for her return, waiting for the time to awaken love that once saved a world, a new family, a new world. Time moved like a river in the dark, slow and quiet and full of things unseen, far from earth, beyond stars and clouds. Luna stood on the balcony of the palace, her eyes fixed on the twin moons above, her heart heavy with thoughts that never left her mind. She held a small crystal in her hand, one that pulsed with warmth, a gift from her mother, a piece of Daniel's light captured before the memory was broken. Each day she walked through the halls of her home, learning, training, preparing to become what her people needed, but each night she returned to that same balcony, whispering his name into the sky, hoping the stars would carry it, hoping he could feel it, even if he did not know why. Her mother Zara watched her with both pride and sorrow. She had given her daughter safety, but at a cost, one that could not be seen but was deeply felt. She knew Luna still loved him, still dreamed of the forest, the house, the soft voice that had once called her Luna, like it was the most precious word in the world. Far away on earth, Daniel lived in peace, though he did not remember why. He often walked in the forest near his home, feeling a strange pull in his chest, like something was missing, like a story had started but never ended. He spent his days helping people, fixing things, planting flowers, and every evening he sat by a glowing tree in his garden, one that grew from a seed he did not remember planting. Children would visit and ask him what kind of tree it was, and he would say, I do not know, but it feels like home. The tree glowed at night, casting soft light over the garden, and sometimes Daniel would dream of stars and moons and a little girl with eyes like the ocean, but when he woke the images faded like fog in the morning. One night, as the wind moved like music and the stars blinked above the tree began to change, its glow became stronger, its leaves shimmered like silver and a soft hum filled the air. Daniel stood and watched as the light rose from the branches into the sky, forming a path that stretched far beyond what eyes could follow. In that moment, far across the galaxy, Luna opened her eyes, her heart beating fast. She felt the call, the bond awakening once more. She looked at her mother and said, he is ready now. Zara nodded and said, then go, child, go to him. He is waiting, even if he does not know. Luna stepped into a circle of light, her cloak wrapped around her and her hand holding the same crystal he once touched. The palace walls opened and the stars moved to welcome her home, not the world she was born into, but the world that gave her love, that gave her a father. As the light touched earth, the garden filled with wind and song, and Daniel stepped back, eyes wide, heart racing as the figure stepped from the glow. Not a stranger, not a ghost, but something his soul knew before his mind could remember. She stood there silent, her eyes shining with tears, her voice soft as she said, I found you. Daniel took a step forward, his hands shaking, his breath caught as pieces of memory returned like light breaking through clouds. He saw her running through the garden, sitting on the couch, drawing her planet. With a smile that could stop time, he whispered Luna, and she ran into his arms, holding him tight like the years had never passed. The tree behind them pulsed once more, and from its trunk grew a second seed, this one brighter, stronger, filled with Both worlds. Daniel looked at her and said, "Welcome home," and she nodded and said, "I never left, not realizera." Watched from above, her heart full of peace. She knew now the bond was not a danger, it was a light strong enough to guide two hearts across the universe, not by force but by love, not by power but by choice. Daniel and Luna built a new home, not in one world but in both. She would travel between stars and sky, and he would keep the light burning on earth, and together they would protect the tree, the seed, the memory. And in the shadows of space, far beyond reach, a figure watched, unseen, waiting. Not with hate, not with envy, but with a plan. The signal had been found, the power had returned. And now a new chapter was ready to begin.